life. But I wanted to get on because I wanted to talk about free speech. We are currently in very, very dark, dangerous times. If you haven't noticed, if you're not from the United States, yeah, we're in really, really, really massive, like not even just red flag territory, but hi, the house is on fire, literally. Um, it's really disturbing, and I just actually got out of Reddit jail. I had been thrown into Reddit jail, basically being banned for 3 days from commenting on another person's post. I was accused of resharing it. I don't recall resharing it. I don't see that I have reshared this, but either way, I mean, that doesn't imply that I, in any way, shape, or form, would condone certain activities just because I reshare them or comment on them. But the one thing that I did do, so basically the original post was someone had posted a video of one of the Tesla dealerships on fire, all the Cybertrucks on fire, and there were a lot of people commenting. I haven't actually tried to hunt the post down again. I need to do that if it's still standing. I would be curious if it actually was allowed to stand, or if I was just the one targeted. But yeah, so it was basically someone had posted an image of a Tesla dealership on fire. And I'm hoping that I'm not going to get dinged on YouTube, but I'm going to take a risk because I feel, hey, we got to have conversation. We have to have free speech. So anyway, again, I'm not condoning this. I'm just using this as an example of why it is important that we have better moderation. Okay. So, person had posted, and I put in my comment, and I was not the only one who did this. A lot of people were laughing, and um, but I actually said, well, I don't think this is a really good protest. I don't think that we should be setting Cybertrucks on fire. I mean, for the very basic point that you're releasing a ton of toxic chemicals into the environment. So this is a dumb protest, right? And I understand that we all, well, not all of us, but many on one side of the aisle maybe feeling a little bit of schadenfreude right now, where they're like, ha ha ha, because, and understandably, and this is why we have to have free speech. We have to be able to, and I'll get into how we can do this later. But just laughing at someone's misfortune online doesn't necessarily mean that they are promoting violence. So the protest that the ding that I got was that I was promoting violence because I reshared this. Again, I don't remember ever sharing that post. And this is about the Elon Musk there. So if you're not aware, here in the United States, and I think actually in Canada, some Tesla dealerships allegedly have been set on fire, and that Cybertrucks have been set on fire. And so I was commenting on a Reddit group with regards to this video of the cars on fire. And I said, I don't think that this is a really great way to protest because you're polluting the environment. You're putting toxic chemicals out into the environment. So basically but then I said, I don't think we should be doing this. This is just polluting the environment. They should just stick to bricks. That's what I said. And, obviously that's in jest. That's just, it's just rhetorical speech, right? And if you're just joining me, I know there's a lot of trolls in my comment section. You can just scroll on by. I'm here to have a serious conversation. So anyway, so I just got out of Reddit jail, and it made me really think, and I've had issues with Reddit, and how they over moderate a lot of their groups. And so I actually, because I think, one of the things about the left, and I am liberal, is that, during the pandemic, they wanted to over moderate and censor speech. If you mention anything like, say, about ivermectin, you would then be banned. And I disagreed with that. And I almost lost a group that I manage, a liberal prepping group, because I disagreed with them. I am very, very much pro free speech. And yes, that does require having personal responsibility, okay? But words, while we can perceive that they can harm and hurt us in some way, technically they're, and we'll get into a nuanced thing about speech and how it can be harmful. But I think that in this day and age, we're just, man, I lost a lot of people. Anyway, anyway, I'm getting lost right now. But yeah, so I really have an issue with this because I think that, we are, uh, and the other thing too is that we're dealing with a lot of trolls. We're dealing with a lot of AI bots that go on there and I'm amazed at what these things can do. Someone can pay a factory that has these troll farms, these things, and you can say, I want to reach all these groups and these messages, and they can set them up and program them, and they go on to Facebook, Instagram, all the social media sites, and they're like Autobots, and they have conversations. It's amazing what they can do. So yes, you may be engaged with a IA bot, which is very disturbing. But my position has been, I am going to stand my ground and take up space. I am not retreating from Facebook or even X for that matter. And X is really bad right now. But I think that it's really, really imperative that, people who have the capacity and have the insight and knowledge about how to have good faith discussions and they have good argumentation logic skills, to post. And it's not merely because, well, why are you engaging with this? And it's like, because that one person that may be wandering around may see your comment and it may make them go, wow, I didn't think of it that way. So it's providing information to random people that maybe, you've got to, if you can do it, take up space, be the light in the darkness, illustrate how you can have good faith conversations and arguments and positions, and other people can see it. It's like if we all silo ourselves into little bubbles, etc., we're not communicating. And I understand it's really difficult right now, and I understand a lot of people they don't have the freedom or the ability to be able to do that. But if you do it, but that requires that we have a lot of self-reflection on ourselves, right? Like we have to be able to handle it, and having good argumentation skills, good debating skills, it's a skill. You have to practice it. It's something that just doesn't automatically just come to you. You have to practice it. And people will go, why are you fighting with me? I'm not fighting with people online. I'm practicing my argumentation skills. And so anyway, so it is very troubling because, I opposed it when the left did it during the pandemic, and I am very concerned right now at the authoritarian direction that Trump and Elon Musk, etc., are engaging in. And, there are multiple layers about what's going on. We still have in play a lot of propaganda, a lot of psychological manipulation, a lot of psychological trauma techniques that are being employed by this administration that are affecting us, and it's very dangerous, and it's very bizarre. It's terrifying actually. But anyway, so it's yeah, so that's kind of what my thing is. So what I was thinking about though, let me see. Okay. Um, so these are some ideas. If you actually moderate a social media community, um, Facebook group, Reddit page, whatever. I've shared this, but I'm going to talk about them. So these are some ideas to think about when you are actually moderating using AI tools, etc. Because if you're just setting up, I mean, I have seen Facebook groups that were about food, right? Like meal prep food. And they're so badly managed that you see a lot of off-topic stuff that's being posted to these various groups. And no one's obviously doing any moderation at all. They're not flagging these or not taking responsibility, you know? And if you really care about us having good conversations that are helping to heal the world and to solve our problems instead of divide us, right? Then, you need to do some homework and you need to practice these skills and you need to really think about them and talk about them with other people, talk about them with other moderators, talk about, have conversations like this. How do we handle and promote the best speech? Because I don't believe that censorship is the answer. Yes, sometimes, but see, this all has to be taken in context. Okay, so, but if you're using censorship to control the narratives that are on a conversation, you're not really providing more information that we need. It might be a different position. Your position you may think is correct, but that's not necessarily true, right? You may be missing some information you didn't think about. And another person coming into the conversation, yeah, they may have a difference of opinion, but they may also help you to understand if their conversation, if their comment is done in good faith, to really make you think. But it's, I understand there's a lot of really, really bad speech online. There's a lot of bad people, a lot of fake bots, trolls, people that are just bad actors are really, really scary. And I know that we want to retreat, but if I really earnestly hope that people will take up the cause and do better and promote better stuff, right? And maybe I'm naive, I'm idealistic, so I believe that there's some hope in social media. A lot of people are like, I'm just gonna get offline. That's fine. I mean, I hear you. It's good to take breaks. But this is, we don't have the ability to be able to share ideas and have really good conversations except online. I also very much promote having groups that you get together. There's a group, I think I don't want to say it's called Indivisible, it's called Braver Angels. And they're basically trying to get the Democrats and the Republicans to see things from the same from the same side. And there's a lot of people out there that are in very bad faith trying to divide us so we don't talk to each other. I've lost several friends. I know that we get heated and angry and emotional, but I feel like, once we calm down, we should come back and be able to really think about what we're trying to achieve. Maybe it is just to agree to disagree, but it's also, hey, wow, maybe both people can go away with a little bit more empathy and insight to each other. And maybe we can find compromises that will heal rather than harm. And, we're just very manipulated right now. We need to be really, really aware of how this is affecting us because we can't problem solve. Your group is not going to be the only group. You may have to work with somebody that you don't have the same religion. You may have about a difference of opinion over here, but understand how to engage respectfully with these people. It's critical. If we can't do that, we're going to implode, and we're very, very close to doing that, actually. So I'm going to go through some of these things and then I'll get off. So basically these are just some reminders if you do moderate a community, how to do so, how to promote better speech in your groups and keep people on topic. Okay, so First one is prioritize context over keywords. So moderation systems should analyze intent and context, not just flag specific words. Now I know it's very easy to say if someone brings up Trump, ban their comment. Well, that a lot of people would say Trump. And on TikTok, a lot of people have to use code words, and a lot of people do that. And I mean, I guess if you have to do that, that's fine, but it's sad that we have to actually do that because an AI bot sees a literal word but doesn't take it into the context in which it's, you can say, I love Trump, I hate Trump. Trump is in both of those. I mean, you see what I mean? All AI tools should be trained to detect sarcasm, humor, and critique rather than assuming all flagged words indicate harm. Second, 2, implement tiered moderation instead of blanket bans. Okay. Warnings before bans. Users should receive explanations and opportunities to appeal before being banned. Graduated penalties instead of automatic long bans. Have a system where users can clarify their intent before harsher actions. Improve appeals processes. Allow users to directly explain in their comments to a human moderator, not just an algorithm. And appeals should be quick and not take days or weeks. Differentiate between harassment and disagreement. Just because a post is controversial or critical does not mean it is harassment or harm or promotion of violence. Focus on actual threats, doxing, and incitement of violence rather than censoring political discourse or satire. Protect humor and satire. Humor is a valid form of critique and should be recognized as such. Platforms could have satire or context tags for posts to reduce misunderstandings. Use human moderators for complex cases. AI can assist but should not make final decisions on bans or content removal. And controversial posts should go through human review, especially if reported multiple times. Transparency in moderation policies. Users should know why their content was flagged and what specific rule they allegedly violated. Now, I have been flagged for things and things automatically removed, and I have emailed the moderators and they won't get back to me. They're just, whatever. Clear guidelines for what constitute hate speech and strong critique would help reduce unfair bans. Now, again, on Reddit, they have a list of rules, and you may have a list of rules and they're very, very specific, and okay, you're justified to have the group the way you want it. But understand that people kind of go a little, rule happy there. If you keep banning every time somebody has a good faith or on a reasonable thing, because okay, I will use this example. So early on when I started Reddit, I was on an ADHD group, the main ADHD group. It's just ADHD. So it's going to be obviously the main one. It's got millions of members, etc. And I had made a comment to a fellow commenter. It wasn't a post I was promoting, nothing like that, where I said, yeah, I have to get back onto my keto diet. That really helped me. And that was my comment. And I got dinged. And I got that post removed. And I said, why are you removing it? Well, in their rules section, they said, they were like, well, you can't talk about diet. On a mental health group that science shows that obviously having a good diet, I was not promoting keto over anything else. I just said that was for me. And so it really is disturbing that, people go, well, we don't allow this. Well, that's nice, but that's pretty overgeneralized. It's like you can be totally overly picky about things. You can have a list of 100 rules and inevitably someone's are going to violate those rules. So, really look, it's like, is this really, are you really going to treat everybody in bad faith? What is your aims? What are your goals? And understand that I think that there's a lot of people that have hijacked a lot of these groups and that work for certain parties or interests. And so they kind of are creating an environment within those groups. They're like controlled capture. Or excuse me, controlled opposition bots, and persons that basically are trying to uh, control the opposition, right? And so they limit what will be talked about, you know, and then they control everything. So they can, oh, here. And I think this is kind of what has happened over on Reddit is that there were a lot of original groups that were started by people and they got a lot of moderators, and one of the moderators ended up being one of these bad faith actors, and then tightened everything up to they got so much control over this group and they're just keeping it the way they want it, and they're not going to let anybody in. And I think that that's, and so a lot of people have had to create like other groups that have, that hopefully will gain a following, etc. But it's very, if you've got 50 rules, those are too many rules, people. Narrow them down to like at the most 10. All right. And don't be so overly picky. Anyway, stop penalizing discussion of sensitive topics. Just because a user mentions a controversial subject does not mean they support it. Discussions around power structures, sexism, racism, corporate influence should not be auto-flagged as hate speech or misinformation without careful review. Now, I am liberal and I have bumped heads with other leftists with regards to how speech codes and politically correct speech. I had this problem going back into the 90s, and I'm 100%. I think that we've got to be very careful and not be so offended by a word. I know that people will disagree with me on that, but it's true. I think that I remember there was a whole conversation. I used to participate in a potluck salon, which is basically a discussion group, in the original salon way. And someone had commented, and they were primarily, it was a whole table of older white liberal types, right? And there was one black friend of mine who was always attended to, and we had great discussions generally speaking. But one day, one of the people at the table had just mentioned that he had observed or overheard a conversation in a local hardware store. And this person that was telling the story actually used the N-word, okay? Actually said it, okay? The whole conversation around the table just stopped. And we had like a 30-minute discussion about whether or not it's appropriate to actually say the N-word, like actually verbally say the actual word, and lost the whole original story that this person was trying to tell. But they were treating it as though he had called somebody the N-word. And it's like, okay. I mean, I understand the word is distasteful and has been used in harmful ways, but ironically, in the actual community, they actually use it a lot to, talk amongst themselves. And I understand people go, well, but they have a right to do that. But the point is that they still use a word they claim I'm being harmed by. Oh no, you harmed me by calling me that name. Because, like we can get really entangled in a lot of just stupid commentary. It's like, roll it back and go, am I actually really, really harming you? Are my actions or my intentions in saying this word really trying to be harmful? Am I like threatening your life? Right? And we don't think about it like, oh, but yeah. I'm like, no, you're not. Your life, you're still breathing. You don't have a literal knife in your chest. You don't have a bullet in your head, right? Like you're not literally being murdered when someone says something. Yes, it may make you feel a little uncomfortable or you might get really angry. Fine, but you're not literally dying. You know, the only time speech, arguably, could be considered harmful is if you are in an entrapped, tortured position, right? Like, say you were locked in a jail cell, or you grew up in a household, which is akin to being in a jail cell, where you heard a lot of really dangerous negative speech, like that your parents, were criticizing you endlessly, or that you were in a dysfunctional domestic, bad domestic situation. Then, yes, arguably, that speech over time, repeatedly insulting somebody, gaslighting them, hating on them, that can indeed constitute actual harm, you know. But in passing, it doesn't, right? I mean, even arguably, the corporation, advertising, the government, etc., their propaganda over time has been harmful. So, in passing, no. But with the deliberate attempt to change opinions, manipulate people, harm people, whatever it is, you are engaging in activities that cause harm. And it's mostly the actions, right? Like they always say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. So you can call me stupid once, and I'm like, whoever, like, who cares about you? But someone calling me stupid that has power over me, is older than me, or is in a situation to where it's repetitive, it then becomes abusive, and definitely causes mental harm. Okay. um, which can cause, unaliving, right? Like, so, it's the context and how it is being used, not that it's just that word, right? And I understand that, I mean, and this is a very nuanced conversation that most people can't have, because they don't want to listen to the next thing. They just want to say, well, I know what you're going to say, shut up, you're out of here, right? And that's not helped us in our society. um Avoid bias. Yeah, avoid bias in moderation decisions. So social media and should equally apply the rules across all political and social spectrums, right? Like, we shouldn't just be isolating, saying, oh, da 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 da. Some groups are disproportionately targeted while others seem to get a quote unquote free pass. This needs to stop. So basically, I mean, yeah, you can sit there and say, well, this is a group and it only, no Trumpsters are allowed. That's fair. But, just understand how, if you are deliberately targeting, if you don't want people in your group, that's on you. I mean, I understand. I wouldn't want to. I actually, I treat everybody in my groups like they're adults. Like, I expect you to behave like an adult. And if you troll and you get to be tiresome, then yeah, you might get booted, because I'm not doing that. And I actually had to do that in another group, because everything I was literally posting, and I had created this group not with the implicit supply. I was going to implicit um, idea that I was going to turn into a political group. It was just because the other local groups were so pro-Trump supported, um, and I wanted to create a local community group that didn't have Trump, and for obvious reasons. But one person got by, um, and just endlessly, every time I posted anything, and I was trying to promote, like, hey, let's do a seed swap, let's do book clubs. I wasn't trying to turn it into a political thing, but I wanted to be able to talk about important issues politically that might affect our community, to people who agreed with me. Whereas the other places, they won't probably be as safe. And I ended up having to boot this guy. I was engaging with him for a while, but he just got to be a pain, and it was distracting me from actually working on these, ideas, on this community. Anyway, So, encourage, and the final one that I want to talk about is encourage free speech while maintaining safety. Hate speech and direct threats should never be tolerated, but differing opinions, sarcasm, and satire should not be treated as threats. So we need to learn how to have a sense of humor when appropriate and be able to discern real threats from humor. Okay, being able to talk about a lot of the stuff online is a vent for us, and we need to be able to have that. The more you silence people, the more frustrated internally they will be, and we are going to end up in a very violent situation if that happens. So being able to talk things out in a healthy way is imperative for us to solve problems, whereas violence, that's, all bets are off. If people start feeling like they're not being heard and they engage in violence, that will escalate in a bad way, and we need to chill that back. And I know that things are very dire, but we need to be smart about how we address what is going on so we can actually fix these problems. Okay. If you go from nothing to violence, there's no room for actual thing, and you may not like the consequences. And I don't mean to put out that martial, I mean, we are in very dangerous times, but I think that that is a very well possibility that that is a problem reaction solution goal of certain interests. So just bear in mind. So anyway, but yeah, the goal in a lot of social media should be fostering a conversation. Okay. And so I understand these are really tricky issues, but I think that it's really important. I'm not trying to defend any one bit of speech or anything like that. I'm just saying both sides are guilty of it and hypocritical, and one is especially being very, 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 very hypocritical right now. And it's amusing, sad, scary that certain people just aren't getting that. You know, during the pandemic, they were complaining about how they didn't have free speech, and now they're just like falling behind Cheeto Hitler and going, and like, whoa, it's crazy. Yes. So, but anyway, be careful out there. I'm going to close. Really think about how we can improve ourselves and how we speak. Learn logical fallacies. Learn about your logical fallacies. How to engage in good faith debate. Listen. If something triggers you, kind of go, why did I get triggered by that, before you just lash out, right? It takes a lot of self-work to be able to do that. So, but and I talk about this because I think that it is really important that we continue to talk about this while we can, and talk to other people in just day-to-day conversation, because that person that's in an office across from yours, they're siloed. They're like, this is my world. They're in a very solipsistic state. Um, and we need to break that apart. We need to be able to hear each other and hear ourselves. And that requires practice and research and education. Okay. And with that, I will leave you. Have a nice day and take care. Thanks. How do I turn this off? Yes.